The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling.
Top of the morning, evening, or afternoon. I'm Joe Doolittle.
And I'm Kate Dudding.
And this is Story by Story.
Sharing the human experience.
And we are storytellers. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the first time we actually called ourselves storytellers, because, it's kind of a big thing, I think, when you acknowledge the fact that you are a storyteller as opposed to just someone who tells stories or tells jokes. Don't you think?
Well, for me, part of it was, once I admitted I was a storyteller, I'd have to explain what a storyteller did.
That's true.
But for probably 5 years, I would go, I'm a computer programmer, but I tell stories too. Or I tell stories, but I'm really a computer programmer. But I remember distinctly 10 years ago, I was going through immigration in London at Heathrow. And I had put down on my form occupation storyteller, because by that time I didn't have my day job as a computer programmer. And I remember the immigration official going, storyteller? Storyteller. Wow. And I went, yes, I'm a storyteller. And then he said, oh, and you've published books. I go, well, by then I think I had a couple of stories in books about knitting, not how-to experiences involving sweaters and teaching and learning and stuff. But I said, no, I just tell to people. So that was, I remember that.
And coming and going through Heathrow is something you do when you do research for stories?
Well, I just am back 10 days
we've been both
from
doing
my
research.
next, my subsequent trip to London. And I did do a little research there, or I did do a little research there. I went to 2 art museums looking for paintings by John Singer Sargent, who is one of the first painters I've investigated. And at the first museum, his masterpiece, one of his masterpieces, my favorite of his, Carnation Lily Lily Rose, was not at the Tate Gallery. It is probably at the Metropolitan Museum
in New York.
At an exhibit, Sargent and His Friends. So I'm going to try to catch up with it there. But I had a very nice discussion with the man in the gallery, the Tate gallery official. And so,
Kate, you didn't do any guerrilla storytelling in those things.
Not there.
Not there. This is
when
what Kate does.
Imperial War Museum to see his other masterpiece that I had never seen. He was commissioned by the Imperial War Museum to go to the front during World War I and make a large painting. That's what he was commissioned to do. So he went. Now, he always liked to paint underneath white canvas umbrellas. So he brought them with him. Now, when he was visiting, he visited the American troops and the British troops. And one side was quite content for him to be rather near the front, underneath a white canvas umbrella. But the other group thought it was sort of a target, and they insisted on putting camouflage netting over it. So he's sitting, doing watercolors and sketching underneath a white canvas umbrella with netting. Okay, so he came back with these watercolors, and the watercolors are of the soldiers. They're leaning back exhausted against a bank, or you see their little tents. None of this heroic on the rearing horse. Of course, they didn't have too many horses, but none of what I think of as war, what you would expect to be in an Imperial War Museum. he came back and using his sketches, he came up with this 20-foot wide painting of injured soldiers. You can just see over in the right side the ropes that are apparently going up to a tent, an aid tent. And the foreground is covered with injured soldiers lying down, higgledy-piggledy. And then there's a line of a dozen soldiers. They've been mustard gas attacked. Then the gas is the name of it. And they're blinded. And there's a fellow leading them, and they have their hands on each other's shoulders. And the fourth one in line has his foot up 18 inches. And there's this little bitty step. And so the word, I think, has been passed down, there's a step. And he's ready for it, but he has no idea how high that step is. And then in the distance, there's another similar line coming to the tent. So that's what John Singer Sargent, the society portrait painter, how he chose to depict World War I.
Oh.
And I told that to a very friendly British couple right in front of the painting.
Wow. Well, when you do research, and Kate is renowned for doing that little bit of what she calls guerrilla storytelling, of telling the stories,
jumping out at people
behind the painting in museums all around the world.
Yes, internationally.
Well, we've been doing a little bit of research. I've been in Italy and with my grandkids and
your wife,
and my wife and my son, and it was, and the other grandmother,
right?
And it was just my son owed his mother-in-law a trip to Rome for all the child care that she's done over the years, and so this was that trip for Oma. And I must say that I was going along just because I'd never been to Italy, but I really fell in love with the place. I will go back at the drop of a hat. I'm getting so that I have a lot of places where I'd like to drop my hat, but at any rate. Well, it's been a pretty busy month for us, and we hope you've had a good time in your world, living your stories. We do have a wonderful guest teller, a storyteller who has begun to raise his profile as a storyteller here in the Capital District. It's Ben Russell. And he's been with us before as part of a reprise on the work of the Interfaith Story Circle, Children at the Well. And we thought we'd kind of visit with him about what he's been doing since he graduated from the University of Albany, in philosophy and in religion, and almost a major in history. But Ben Russell, it's nice to see you again.
Yes.
Yes.
And we understand that you're going to be a new voice at the National Storytelling Meeting out in Kansas City in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And a workshop presenter with Paula Weiss, director of Children at the Well, which is Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding, just finished its 10th year.
Yeah.
Yay!
And Ben, that was quite a thing, because we first met you as a member of Children at the Well probably about 10 years ago. You were a little shorter then.
Yeah.
You certainly have grown up to be tall. That's great. Could you just, I'm curious, can you share with me kind of what it was like, what drew you to that Children at the Well session?
Yeah, when I started in Children at the Well, I had no idea what storytelling was.
Wow.
A lot of the students in the group, they came from, they had previously done, performing in some way. I really hadn't. I think I had been in one play, maybe two in the background, but I really didn't know anything about storytelling. I didn't know anything about performing. I didn't know what storytelling was. I just knew that, I liked listening to some of the tapes that my mom had, and those were storytellers. Mm-hmm. But I was Paula Weiss recommended that I join it, and I'm not the kind of person to take any kind of risks. I'm not the kind of person to join anything that I don't know anything about. But against my better judgment, I decided, fine, you know what? I never join anything. I never do anything. I don't want to do it. I don't want to join things I don't understand or know. But this time I will. So I joined. I didn't know anything about it, but the meetings that we had, every student there was wonderful, from a different culture. I was fascinated by everyone. Everyone was telling stories, and I loved stories. So it was a wonderful experience for me being in the group, and I found that even though originally I had no idea what storytelling was, I now loved it.
And you are very, very good at it. I mean, it was such a wonderful fit for you.
Well, and Kate's gotten some renown with a story of you and your two friends at a state storytellers gathering where we just asked you to tell in a story swap. And I can still recall the exuberance of your friends for encouraging one who was Hindu and one who was Muslim, to tell the Helm stories, and it was one of my best memories of storytelling. Not only it's gotten better because of Kate's adaptation of it too, but it was just a great moment, one I'll always remember in storytelling.
Did you know about Helm stories?
Yes, I got to tell.
Helm, it's somewhere in between those two, I know. But,
the two extremes. The two extremes.
You're right, yes. Did you know about that tradition of telling stories from the Village of Fools there?
Yeah.
Did you know before you were in Children at the Well?
I'd heard some Helm stories, but I hadn't heard too many of them. Actually, one of the individuals at my synagogue, she said that she never really liked Helm stories, so that's why she didn't tell them. But she liked my Helm stories.
Oh.
Yeah. So mine were good. But yeah, so.
You accept them for what they are.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You're not dumping on them because they are foolish.
Yeah.
Because
they might not be.
Yes, there's always some wisdom in there, even though it's 180 degrees from what we would normally think of as wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the other thing before we listen to a story, since we haven't caught up on this, in your own development, this past season, you were a coach. Mm-hmm. You were one of those folks that Children at the Well call on to teach other storytellers. So in some respects, you've come full circle. And what was that like when you were starting it? Because it's a different role for you.
Yeah. It's different. I knew how to listen to people telling me what to do, but now I was telling people what to do. And also at the beginning, some of the people in the group, they knew me from when I was in the group. So it's like, it's Coach Ben, but really, it's just Ben. But it's a lot different. I mean, I started as an assistant, so I was kind of in there when the other coaches were doing the coaching and assisting them, sometimes listening to people independently, giving a little bit of feedback. But as a full coach, that was even different, from being an assistant coach. Like each role, I think, oh well, it's pretty much just going to be the same. I've done storytelling for years now. It's going to be the same, but it's been different. But it's been just as fun as being in the group. I love listening to all of the students that we have each year tell, seeing them go from the beginning to majestic, and it's a wonderful experience. It's been great.
Yeah, it certainly is a great experience. I stand in awe of both the youth that do the telling and the coaches and the whole thing.
Right. Of course, I can see where you say it'll be just the same, because part of your training as a teller of Children at the Well is to listen to the other tellers and to give them positive feedback. Mm-hmm. I'm not. Of course, I've never been in one of your classes, but I have taken a few classes from Marnie Gillard, and so I assumed what she did with adult storytellers, she would also do with teenage storytellers. So you were drawn into storytelling in the tradition of, in a sense, being a coach or a fan.
Yeah.
Or do they ever do let people make suggestions or say what problems they had with the story listening? I'm just...
as far as people having problems listening, or as far as the listening?
Right. You know, there's in Story Circle, if the teller wants, they can get feedback on. Did you have problems in any part of my story? And that would be a time when someone could say, when the two women were talking together, I wasn't always sure who was speaking.
Yeah.
So not necessarily not giving a solution to that, but saying this interfered with my listening, and so maybe it might have been me, but maybe you want to think about how to address that.
Yeah. In the group, what we do is whenever any student tells a story, we go around and what we first do is we appreciate the story. We find something that each of us that we enjoyed, something that stood out to us, and a lot of times the teller isn't even aware that it's something that people liked.
Right.
You know, I wasn't even conscious of that. I accidentally did that.
It's a beautiful gesture.
Yeah.
Was it what?
I didn't even know I did that. But yeah, so we find something that we appreciate, and that kind of if it's something positive, it's something good, that kind of ingrains it. It stays there. You find out that it's valuable, and you put it in next time. So we first start with appreciations, because this sets us up on a positive footing. We value each other. We're not thinking critically. We're enjoying stories. But then we're friends in the group. We all respect each other. So we're not critical of each other. We're not negative toward each other. But we do sometimes give suggestions. We'll say I wasn't really sure exactly when this took place. It might be nice if you repeated the number that that you said originally, because I just couldn't remember it. I realized it later, but I couldn't remember it at the time. So we might give some suggestions there, but it's never in a kind of negative way.
Right.
It's always positive.
A real teller would have.
Yeah.
That meant that would kill someone's voice and confidence.
Yeah.
Most storytellers I've met are wonderful people. Encouraging. They're just maybe 2 or 3 prima donnas who no.
Okay,
you're in a category all by yourself, but we won't go there.
We don't want them to repeat the story that we put in them. That's not what we want. We don't want them to this is how I would tell your story. You should tell it like I did.
Right.
We want them to tell the story each of them their own individual ways, and we just want to help them find out how they want to tell the stories. Yes.
Yeah, I've never done coaching because I'm afraid I wouldn't want to create mini-me's, but
we wouldn't want to have too many guerrilla storytellers.
Well,
Kate. There's only a limit to so many of
them. But the teachers that I've had, Marnie, Janine Laverty for a long time, Elizabeth Ellis, have let me find my own voice. And Elizabeth Ellis, bless her heart, I told one story about Irving Berlin and the musical Annie, Get Your Gun. And the way the people of Appalachia are treated in that story is just appalling to her. Oh. But I didn't know from her coaching. She swallowed all that. It was only years later when she mentioned it in passing in another conversation that had nothing to do with Irving Berlin or my work or anything, that hillbillies is heard as negative by people of Appalachia as the six-letter N-word is to African Americans.
Ooh.
I went, so my first reaction, so the Beverly Hillbillies, that's appalling. I said, oh, and then Annie gets you.
Well.
So anyways, I digress.
You learn a lot as a storyteller, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
And, and maybe it's time, Ben, for you to tell us a story. We'll debrief, and then we'll come back and continue a little bit of our conversation with you about what you've learned as a storyteller. But of course, tell us a story.
Sure, yeah. All right. Well, this is the first story that I ever told, or it wasn't the first story I ever told, but it's the first Helm story that really stood out. I had told a Helm story before, but this is the Helm story that everyone, thinks, that's the story that Ben tells. It's Strudel, Strudel, Strudel. The town of Helm is a town of fools. Well, some people say it's actually a town of people who are very, very wise. But they're so wise that no one understands them and thinks them foolish. But that doesn't really matter. Now, the town of Helm is a strange town. There are things that are different in the town of Helm than other towns. And one of the things that's so different is there are some strange signs. Like over there, underneath the light, there's a sign that says, "Search here." Now, to anyone not from Helm, this sign, it makes no sense at all. But to a Helmite, this sign makes perfect sense. Because you see, if you lose something in the middle of the night, the best place to look for it is where the light is. Well, that sign, I guess it makes perfect sense. But another sign, it makes even less sense. This sign, it's a large sign, and it stands right in front of Town Hall, and it says, "A schoolteacher may not live on a hill. A schoolteacher may not have a chest with wheels. And a schoolteacher may not have apple strudel." Now, to anyone not from Helm, this sign, it makes no sense at all. But of course, to a Helmite, this sign makes perfect sense. And there's a story behind it. Because you see, a long time ago in the town of Helm, there was a schoolteacher. His name was Zaniel, and he lived on top of a tall hill with his wife, Zelda. Now, Zaniel, he was a poor school teacher. It's not that he was a bad school teacher, far from it. He was a wonderful school teacher. Everyone loved Zaniel. But school teachers, they're not paid a lot. And Helm, it was not a rich town, so they weren't able to give him as much as they wanted to give him. But it was all right, because Zaniel and Zelda, they always had enough for candles and dinner each Shabbat. That is, until Zaniel and Zelda started to get invited to all of the events in the town of Helm, all of the parties, the births, the weddings, the bar and bat mitzvahs. At every single event, people wanted Zaniel and his wife Zelda to be there. But at all of these events, there was always apple strudel. Now, Helm apple strudel, it's amazing. It's the best apple strudel that one can imagine. The apples are just right. The pastry is perfect in every single way. Everyone loves Helm apple strudel. Zaniel and Zelda really loved Helm apple strudel. They wanted more apple strudel. They couldn't have any more. They didn't have the money. So they went through their days just thinking strudel, 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 strudel. Until one day, Zelda had an idea. She rushed over to her husband and said, "Zaniel, Zaniel, I know just how we can have all the strudel we want." And Zaniel, he says, What? Tell me." And Zelda says, "You know that chest, the one with wheels that we got from your uncle? I say we roll it out. We cut a hole in the top of the chest, and each day until summer, we drop in 1 coin, 1 zloty. When summer arrives, it will be filled with money, and I can buy all the ingredients and make us all the apple strudel that we want." Well, this was a wonderful idea. So that's just what they did. The next day, they rolled out the old chest, the chest with wheels that Zaniel had gotten from his uncle. They cut a hole in the top of the chest, and Zaniel stood on one side of the chest, Zelda stood on the other side of the chest, and they each dropped in 1 coin, 1 zloty. Well, as the day went on, Zaniel started thinking. He was thinking, I'm a poor school teacher. I don't make much money. Most of the money I make, I give to my wife. I need my money. I need to buy books, to buy pencils, to repair the schoolhouse. I can't afford 1 coin every day. My wife, what does she need her money for? Her money, it will be more than enough. So Zaniel stopped putting in his coin. Well, meanwhile, Zelda was thinking, and she was thinking, I don't work. All the money I have, I get from my husband. I need my money. I need to buy shoes, to buy clothing, to buy groceries. I can't afford 1 coin every day. Zaniel, he's a good man. His money, it will be more than enough. So she stopped putting in her coin as well. And days passed. Weeks and weeks passed. Months and months with no coins being dropped into the chest. And finally, it was summer. It was time to open the chest. Well, Zaniel stood on one side of the chest, Zelda stood on the other side of the chest, and slowly they opened the lid and looked inside, and there were 2 coins. There were just 2 coins. They were shocked. They didn't know what happened. Zelda, she says, we've been robbed. Yes, says Zaniel, we've been robbed. Oh no, robbers had come into their house in the middle of the night. How did they get in? Where did they come from? Was it one of the Helmites? Was it one of their neighbors? They were so scared. They didn't know who to go to. They didn't know what to do now that the robbers had stolen all of the money in the chest except for 2 coins. Why would robbers steal all of the money in the chest except for 2 coins? Well, that didn't make much sense, and they started thinking. Then they looked at one another. You, says Zelda. You, says Zaniel. You didn't put your money in the well, I need my money. What do you need your money for? And they started arguing, yelling at each other. And they're going around the chest, becoming more and more energetic as anger overtakes them. They're yelling at each other, and they're not watching where they're going. Well, Zelda, she slips, and she falls into the chest. And she's yelling, Zaniel, help me out of the chest. And well, Zaniel, he was mad at his wife. She wasn't putting in the money. But on the other hand, she was his wife. So he decides that he has to help her out of the chest. So he's pulling on her. He's pulling on her, trying to get her out of the chest, but he falls into the chest as well. And the chest, the lid, it slams shut. And it's a chest on wheels, and they're arguing in the chest still, and it's rolling back and forth. And the door to their house on top of the hill, it was open, and the chest on wheels rolls out of the door to their house on top of the hill, and the chest starts zooming down the hill, going faster and faster, with Zaniel and Zelda still arguing, still inside the chest. Well, the dogs of the town of Chelm, they hear Zaniel and Zelda arguing inside of the chest, and they start running after the chest, which is zooming down the hill. And the children of the town of Chelm, they see the dogs running after the chest, which is zooming down the hill, and they think, ooh, what a fun new game. So they start running after the dogs who are running after the chest, which is zooming down the hill. And the mothers, they see their children running after the dogs who are running after the chest, which is zooming down the hill, and they don't want their children to get dirty, so they start running after their children who are running after the dogs who are running after the chest, which was zooming down the hill. And the fathers in the marketplace, they see their wives running after the children, running after the dogs who are running after the chest, and well, they really didn't have anything better to do that day. So they start running after their wives who run after their children, who run after the dogs who are running after the chest, which is zooming down the hill, and it's going faster and faster. It's zooming through the marketplace. It's knocking apples over their chickens on people's heads. It's madness. Well, the chest, it finally comes to a stop after knocking over some potatoes over there. And the Chelmites, they gather around the chest. There are voices coming from the chest. It must be demons, says one man. Yes, demons, said another. Well, the Chelmites, they're no fools. Well, anyway, they're no fools. They're afraid of demons. They don't want to go anywhere near the chest. But one of the children, he's He's not afraid. He's been having so much fun. He goes up to the chest and he puts his ear onto the chest and listens. And he says, "The demons sound like my school teacher and his wife." Well, one of the bravest of the Helmites, he approaches the chest, not as close as the boy, he's not taking any risks today, and he listens as well. It does sound like Zaniel and his wife Zelda. Well, the Helmites, they don't know what to do. So they call the wise men of Helm, the wisest of all of the Helmites. And the wise men of Helm, they come to the marketplace. They open the chest and let Zaniel and Zelda out, still arguing. They realize that this cannot happen again. Something must be done. They listen to Zaniel and Zelda. They know the situation. They decide to meet for 7 days and 7 nights. They will come out with a decision. They will solve this problem and make sure that nothing like this ever happens in the town of Helm again. So the wise men, they meet for 7 days. They meet for 7 nights. And finally, they come out with their decision. All of Helm is in attendance. And one of the wise men, he steps forward and he says, "This must never happen. We know what to do. First, we will take away the chest with wheels that Zaniel got from his uncle. We will move Zaniel and Zelda's house from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. And the baker will give Zaniel and Zelda honey cakes, so it will appease their cravings for sweets. And so this is remembered. We will put a sign in front of Town Hall, and on this sign it will say, 'A school teacher may not live on a hill. A school teacher may not have a chest with wheels. And a school teacher may not have apple strudel.' So now you, just like the Helmites, know the meaning behind this sign." Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, man. And the wisdom there is that you don't always trust the wisdom, but there you go. And there's some certainty in the nature of the human nature, I suppose. Fun. And you've been telling that story for how long?
I'm not exactly sure.
A long time.
A while now.
8 years
Maybe
at
something
least?
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been in my head for a while now.
Yeah, well,
Strudel.
Yeah.
I mean, it was clearly not your first telling.
No.
You had the dynamics of sometimes your normal voice, sometimes loud, sometimes speaking normally, sometimes going down the hill.
Yeah.
and of course your character voices. You've always been very
Yeah.
very talented in using them enough so we get the flavor, but not so much that we go, "What did he just say?"
Right.
Just wonderful.
If our viewers were looking for some other resources on Helm, is there a book that or books that you've drawn from, or are these oral stories?
There are many books that I've gone to when looking for Helm stories. I mean, there's the Wise Men of Helm. That's
Okay, and Helm is spelled CHELM.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. It sometimes isn't spelled that way.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I normally spell it with a C, but I've seen it spelled with a K. I've seen it spelled with an H. I've seen it spelled with letters that don't exist, in our alphabet.
Right.
But yeah, it's spelled a few different ways. But if you
So Google phonetically.
Yeah. Just do a few Google searches and you'll find something.
Right, like Hanukkah is spelled.
Can be spelled with anything.
Right. When you go from language to language, the mapping is.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different Helm stories, and each author takes a different approach with the Helm stories. Sometimes laughing at them, sometimes appreciating them. I like to appreciate them. Some of the other ones are more sarcastic towards the Helmites, but there are a lot of common stories that that have been told, and there are many different versions of them that you can find. Like this story, it's blintzes, it's strudel, it's other items. I've read like a few different versions of this story alone. Yeah, there are many Chelm stories out there, and if you just type in Chelm, you'll probably find more than you ever wanted to ever find.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much. We're gonna just kind of do a little bit of promo on what's going on in storytelling, and we'll come back, Ben. Kate, what's going on?
What's going on? Well, August has always been the start of Not Just for Kids Storytelling series over in Fort Hunter, just west of Amsterdam. Every Sunday at 6 p.m. they have fabulous storytellers. Starting on August 2nd, Tim Van Egmond will be there. And then the next Sunday, Oz Bodkin. Now, he's one of the first storytellers I listened to on tapes. And he also is wonderful with voices, but he also uses instruments.
Right. Plays the harp.
He plays the harp. I mean,
Yeah.
I took a weekend workshop with him, and he probably had a dozen instruments surrounding him, several kinds of everything, lutes and whatever. And he can also make a sound like manure dropping in porridge.
Wow. There's a metaphor for you.
And he tried to teach us that, but I was unsuccessful. Then Joe Peck, our friend, who's been on this show, will be there the next Sunday. What Farms Used to Be Like. Simon Brooks, who is an Englishman living in New Hampshire, will be telling on the following Sunday. I will be out of town, so I can't go to that one. Then our own Four Stories High. Mary Murphy, Carol Conley, Barbara Palumbo, and Jane Ainsley will be telling Pearls of Wisdom the last Sunday in August. And then they skip Labor Day weekend, and Jackson Gilman will be finishing the series on stories of Rudyard Kipling.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He impersonates Rudyard Kipling. And he's a wonderful storyteller and can do that.
Oof.
So, it's not that far. It's a lovely location. It's a wonderful way to end your weekend.
And it's a great, great venue. It's one of the best kept secrets in the Capital District, so please talk it up.
Yes. Our next Story Circle meeting will be, I believe, at the Pine Hills Library in Albany. Sharing of stories under development and perhaps a learning session at the beginning. And we only request that you tell and don't read.
So if you're thinking about trying or tasting a little bit of storytelling in your own level, please be encouraged to come to those sessions because they're fun and the folks bring work in progress, and it's fun to listen, and it's good feedback and a good connection. So we hope to see you.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Then Janet Carter has her storytelling series down in Saugerties, which is not that far from the Capital District, at the Inquiring Minds Bookstore on the third Friday of the month, August 21st this month. And then I have an event at the last day of August, Monday, August 31st, 9 a.m. at the Clifton Park Half Moon Public Library. I will be giving an introduction to the exhibit at the Clark Art Institute in Williamstown. It's a fabulous exhibit, Van Gogh and Nature. And so I've been to the exhibit, I've researched the painting, I'm all set for my guerrilla storytelling. Except most of these paintings are from afar.
Right.
But I can, if any painting of that he's done in the south of France of olive trees or cypress, I can just do the same kind of blurb. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I learned so much about him, so much that I didn't know. And afterwards, we'll carpool to the museum, and if we have 20 people or more, then people will get the group we'll get a discount and get the group rate. And there's information on who you should contact, not me. I am the talent in this group. I am not the organizer. And so advanced reservations are requested. And then, of course, we have our YouTube channel, storycircle@proctors.org. summer television kind of.
Yeah, it's really awful. Oh.
You can always, we have over 150 stories. Ben is already there. These stories will be added to it. And that's what I know.
Okay. Well, that 1st of September will be the first one of first Tuesdays of Stories and Stuff at Arthur's in the Stockade. So show up for that. It's spoken word, poetry, stories, music, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Well, that's kind of a quiet month in storytelling, but we'll have a fall season coming up, and we'll talk more about that next month. And
we have a fabulous opener for Story Sunday on the first Sunday in October, but more about that.
More about that later. All righty, and we're back to Ben Russell. We were talking earlier about whether Kate and I, when we began to call ourselves storytellers. Do you call yourself a storyteller? If somebody said, "Hey, Ben Russell, what do you do?"
Yeah, I didn't call myself a storyteller for a long time, and it was Gert Johnson from known in the storytelling community and especially in Children at the Well. She said that she had begun referring to me as a Jewish storyteller because she said really that's what I was. So she's the one who began calling me a storyteller, and I just I figured I'm being called a storyteller by everyone else. I guess that's what I am, but. So I do call myself a storyteller.
All right.
But I normally qualify it. I shouldn't, but I do. I normally say, well, I'm a storyteller. But I'm not like a storyteller like them. I tell stories, and I am a storyteller, but well, maybe I'm a storyteller. I tell some stories. I've done storytelling for 10 years. Not a long time. So I do call myself a storyteller, but it's still kind of, it's new to me.
Ben, you are a professional Jewish storyteller.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what you just told us there, strudel, could be done anywhere, on any stage.
On any stage.
Yeah.
And in front of storytellers, and they would go, how did he get so good so young?
Yeah. Good coaching. Oh.
Yeah, but no. Professional storyteller.
Yeah, all right.
You're right, that's the next step.
Yeah.
I'm a professional storyteller.
Just another little follow-up to that. You've just finished your bachelor's degree, right?
Yep.
And at SUNY at Albany, and with a double major, almost a triple major, so it was philosophy and religion and history. And your summer job is kind of related to telling stories in a way, but you're at the
I'm at the Shaker Museum, Mount Lebanon.
Mount Lebanon.
Yep, it's about 40 minutes out of Albany or so. It's kind of near Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So it's a drive, but worth it.
And what are you doing there?
I'm a tour guide. Yeah, I'm. So if you want to hear me tell stories about Shakers, I now am able to do that. I'm widening my range from Jewish stories.
Right.
So I'm giving tours there, and it really is kind of like storytelling.
I bet it is. Having thought through that process myself, and boy, that's an intriguing community. I mean, in terms of one of the dynamics of being Shaker and what the community meant. And for those of you who haven't been there, it's as you head on Route 20 up the mountain over to Pittsfield, just on the right, it's also the entrance to the Darrow School, and then there's the Shaker, because they're in some of the Shaker buildings.
Yep.
Past the raceway, before the state line.
Before the state line, past the raceway, and the shrine of St. Clair
And
or
the
whatever.
theater barn.
So, the theater barn, yeah. So there's a lot of cultural things over there. And I think, have you given some thought to how your storytelling as a skill, how your abilities as a public speaker might play into your future?
Yeah, I mean, storytelling has definitely largely affected my speaking skills. You listen to what you're saying more after having done storytelling. You kind of realize that everything that you're saying is, in a way, you're telling a story. You try to make words count. You try to not say words like which I'm saying, but you try to eliminate words that don't matter and stay to the words that do matter. You also kind of realize that it's valuable to vary your voice. Don't say everything in one tone. You figure out where to go high, where to go low. You figure out where to speed up, where to slow down. And one thing that's really important that's difficult in storytelling and difficult when you're telling anything, when you're talking to anyone, is that when you get engaged in something, you tend to speed up. You tend to go fast. You get really happy. You start smiling. But then eventually that ends. You need to bring it down again. And it's really hard to go from being very engaged and very, very fast and go down and start slowing your voice down and going to the pace you were before. And that's very helpful, and I learned that from being in storytelling. And also listening, how to be an engaged listener. And that helps, when I'm doing anything, when I'm at the museum or just in life, learning how to listen properly, and that's been just as important as speaking properly.
Wow. Learned a great deal.
Right. And we could learn a lot more, but we have about 13 minutes left. So, you have another story?
I do have another story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, and so the other story I told was one of the first Chelm stories I told. It was one of my, defining Chelm stories. So this one is the most recent one that I've told, and it's the Dragon of Chelm. So, in the town of Chelm, as I've already, I've already shown from my other story, there are the wise men of Chelm, the wisest of the Chelmites. And one of these wise men, one of the wisest of all of the Chelmites, is Moshe the mathematician. Yes, it was Moshe the mathematician who discovered what makes tea sweet. Now, you probably think that it's the sugar. How wrong you are. It's not the sugar that makes the tea sweet. No. It's the spoon. The spoon is what makes the tea sweet. Now you might think, why put the sugar in at all? Well, Moshe has an answer for that. You put the sugar into the tea to know how long to leave the spoon in it. When the sugar dissolves, you know that the spoon has sweetened the tea enough that you can take the spoon out of the tea. Yes, Moshe was a brilliant man, so it was necessary that his wisdom be passed on to the next generation. So he took on a student. His name was Avi, and he was a bright young man. He studied under Moshe day and night, day and night. And one day, he came to Moshe with a problem. He said, Moshe, I'm a man, I'm grown, but I can't grow a beard. And this was a problem, because as we all know, beards are where wise men keep all of their wisdom. You can't be a wise man if you don't have a beard. So Moshe, he knew the severity of this situation, and he told Avi that he would think about it, he would contemplate, he would ponder the question, and he would find an answer. So when Avi left, Moshe sat in his favorite chair. He leaned back and he started to think, untangling the knots in his beard, trying to unravel the answers. But no sooner had he sat down in his favorite chair than he heard noises coming from outside. The children of the town of Chelm were playing games right outside of his house. Now, on any other day, Moshe, he wouldn't have minded. He probably would have gone out and he would have played with the children. He loved the children of the town of Chelm. But not today. Today he needed to think. He wanted the children to go away, but he didn't want to hurt their feelings. And then he had an answer. He knew what to do. He rushed to the window and he looked outside and he said, Children, children, what are you doing here? don't you know what day it is today? A dragon is coming to the town of Chelm. He's coming down the river. Go see the dragon. Well, the children, dragons were interesting and all, but they weren't going to go see a dragon. Dragons were scary. And Moshe realized his mistake, and he said, no, it's a good dragon. He breathes honey cakes, and he grants wishes. A wish-granting dragon was coming down the river of Chelm? Well, the children, they didn't need to hear any more than that. They rushed to the river as fast as they could. And there was silence. Moshe, the mathematician, sat down in his chair to once again think. But no sooner had he sat down and begun to think than he heard more noises coming from his window. So he rushed to his window. He looked outside and he saw all the men and women of Chelm rushing past his house. And he said, Chelmites, what are you doing? And the men and women of Chelm, they looked up at Moshe, and one of the men, he said, Moshe, don't you know what day it is today? A dragon is coming down the river of Chelm. A dragon that grants wishes. What a day. What a day indeed. A dragon was coming down the river of Chelm. A dragon that grants wishes. Well, Moshe the mathematician, one of the wisest men of Chelm, he had to be there. He had to see the dragon. So he rushed to his door. He threw on his coat. He threw on his hat, and he was halfway out the door. When he realized that he was the one who made up the story about the dragon in the first place. There was no dragon coming down the river of Chelm. So he went back to the window and he looked outside and he said that he had seen enough dragons in his lifetime. He had seen so many wish-granting dragons, he didn't need to see another one. And he told the Chelmites to go on their way. So he sat down in his chair once more to try to think. But no sooner had he sat in his chair than he heard more noise coming from the window. So he rushed to the window. He looked outside and he saw all of the other wise men of Chelm wisely walking by his house. And he said, my friends, my colleagues, where are you going? And one of the other wise men of Chelm looked up at Moshe and said, Moshe, don't you know what day it is? Today, a dragon is coming down the river of Chelm. A dragon that grants wishes. What a day. What a day indeed. A dragon was coming down the river of Chelm. A dragon that grants wishes. Well, Moshe the mathematician, one of the wisest men of Chelm, he had to be there. He had to see the dragon. So he rushed to the door. He threw on his coat. He threw on his hat. And he was halfway out the door when he realized that he was the one who made up the story about the dragon in the first place. But then again, what are the chances of all the Chelmites, all the wise men of Chelm, being wrong? Well, that wasn't something that could possibly happen. So Moshe, the mathematician, decided that he must be incorrect. He must be wrong. He thought he made up the story about the dragon, but really there was a dragon coming down the river of Chelm, and he, Moshe the mathematician, he had to see this dragon. So he joined the other wise men of Chelm, and together they went down to the river to wait for the dragon. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited some more. And time was passing, the day was growing later. There was no dragon. Well, the men and women of the town of Chelm, they couldn't stand by a river all day. They had important man and woman things to do. So they left. They left the river. And the children, they stayed a while longer, but they had important children things to do. Games weren't going to be played by themselves. They had to leave. So the children, they decided that they would leave the river as well, and they left. But the wise men of Chelm, they could do wise things anywhere, so they didn't have to leave the river, so they stayed there a while longer. But they were getting grumpy, they were getting tired, they didn't want to stand by the river all day waiting for this dragon. So eventually, all of the wise men of Chelm left the river, except for Moshe, the mathematician. He was determined. He was determined to see this dragon. He stood by the river and he continued to wait and wait and wait. And that's just where Avi found him. And Avi went up to Moishe and said, Moishe, I've been looking everywhere for you. Do you have an answer? Do you know why I can't grow a beard? And Moishe, he turned around and he smiled, a big smile, and he said, Avi, I've had so much time to think. It's been so quiet by the river. I know why you can't grow a beard. Because you see, most men take after their fathers and grow beards. You, Avi, take after your mother, and that's why you don't grow a beard. But there was still a problem. Because you can't be a wise man if you don't have a beard. So Avi, he still didn't know what to do. But Moishe had a solution for this as well. He said, Avi, don't despair. Because do you know what day it is today? Today, a dragon is coming down the river of Helm. A dragon that will grant wishes. Stay here with me, Avi. Wait for the dragon, and you can wish for a beard. Thank you.
Amazing story.
And there they are still today.
And there they are, Avi and Moishe, just kind of sitting there waiting for the dragon.
Waiting for the dragon. They're dedicated.
I love it. I love it. We are all dragon waiters in some way, shape, or form, I suppose.
Well, a lot of people rewrite their own histories, so
That's true. That's true.
that little.
And the character there, he certainly rewrote his own story. You know, talked himself into believing it. I think that's great.
When a story becomes too real.
Right. Oh, I wanted to say before, in the strudel story where they were both supposed to put in coins every day.
Yes.
And they stopped doing it. Well, I know there's a story from someplace in Africa.
Yeah.
Where they were everyone was supposed to bring a pitcher of
Water
wine for the
yeah.
celebration. And almost everybody said, "Well, I don't want to waste I'll just bring some water." And when the ruler found out, tasted it. So I mean, so that it was that sort of that same thread. It's found many places.
Yeah, the same stories are everywhere. I've heard the same, stories that I've heard in the Jewish tradition and, Muslim stories, Hindu stories. Yeah, they're everywhere.
Right. When I went to my first meeting at a mosque of the Interfaith Story Circle, every time they told a Muslim story, I went, I heard that as a Jewish story.
Right.
But then again, the cultures come from the same area, so or some of them do, some of each tribe do. So
we've always been meeting by the well.
Always been meeting by the well. Yes.
Well, the interesting bit of metaphor of this story is that he makes up a story about a dragon and then realizes that the dragon is a foreboding image. So he has to then correct himself.
Yep.
And then it makes it into an attractive dragon, which is, of course, a bit of an oxymoron all of itself. And then the story grows and grows and grows. It's just a wonderful story.
Do you think all dragons are bad? Isn't that a little prejudiced on your part?
Probably. But I was referencing the metaphor of the whole thing.
Not the real dragons.
Not the real dragons. Yeah. The real dragons. I think I saw a dragon right next to your parking spot in the parking lot. So be very careful when you go outside. No.
We have just 40 seconds left.
40 seconds. Well, I suppose that's enough time to say thank you to Ben Russell.
Yes.
And we hope to hear more of your stories and more of your story going forward, however your professional life develops and your personal life develops too. And Kate, it's good sharing table with you.
Now that we're both in the same town at the same time.
That's right. And we look forward to hearing from you. We'd love your feedback about the story or our storytelling programs. And we look forward to another season, which will begin with our next show here on Public Access Television.
Thank you for coming.
Good cheer.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. and all my life's a circle. I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again.